Well, I'm excited to be here tonight, guys. It is officially the first live draft that I'm going to do for 2025 fantasy football on Underdog. You're going to see me go through it, an entire draft right here. And I've already gone through, I think, 4. This will be my 5th draft on Underdog for 2025. Best ball right here. And I just wanted to show you guys kind of what we could get into. So the big board is my personal favorite. The big board, it's a $10 buy-in. It's got the greatest rake here. You got $250,000 the first place, $100,000 the second place, $75K to third. These are all great avenues just to get into Underdog right here, in my opinion, personally. So I would say that these are, particularly great, sites that you can draft Underdog on. And I think that the little board is okay. It's $3 buy-in, a little bit easier to get into. $100,000 to first place, 50K to second, 25K to third. Bigger board is a $100 buy-in, and the rake is $30,000 to first place, $20,000 to second, $15,000 to third. So I personally prefer the big board. That's personally the one that I would recommend you guys using. And if you want to get in on an Underdog draft, go down to the description and use code FFN. There's a link there for you to get in on Underdog. You can use code FFN. I won $19,000 playing Underdog last year. It was the way that I won pretty big money, I would say, playing Underdog last year. I had a lot of fun doing it. And we're going to try to run it back this year. So we're getting into a big board draft right now. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel as well to show your support. And while I do this draft, guys, I kind of want to run you guys through, what my strategy is, particularly in the first 5 rounds. So, obviously, since I won $19,000 on Underdog last year, I've gotten a lot of questions about, what is the, what's my draft method? And I think that, it's just one of those things that you have to obviously pick the right player. Like, that's never going to change. But there is ways that I'd like to share with you guys today that I think really helped me out. And so we're going to kind of walk through some of those ways right here before things get started. Richard Cranium says it's too early. I know, but I'm a lunatic when it comes to fantasy football. So obviously it's never too early for me because I'm a fantasy football lunatic and I don't stop thinking about it. So I like to go to RotoViz.com. And RotoViz.com has a really cool tool. And it's called the Underdog Best Ball Roster Construction Explorer. So essentially what this does is before you set anything up, it's going to show you what your advance rate potential is before you even draft. So obviously it's 12 teams in an Underdog draft, and you have a 16.7% chance to advance to the playoffs as is. So that's your advance rate potential. So let's say that you want to pick, for example, a running back 1 in round 1. It's going to show you what your chances are to make the playoffs, make the semifinals, and make the finals after you pick a running back 1 historically over the last 2 years, 2-year period between 2021 and 2023. So that is a number right there that is just, obviously picking a running back 1 in the first round historically has not done great as far as advancing to the playoffs. Not saying you can't do it, but I am saying it's a little bit tougher. So we get the 101 today. And honestly, I do like Jamar Chase. I do think that he is my personal favorite right now in these fantasy football drafts, so I probably will end up taking Jamar Chase with the 101. So let's just go ahead and set it to wide receiver 1 in round 1, just so I can show you guys what happens when we take Jamar Chase here in just a second. So our chances go from 16% basically to make the playoffs to 18%. So that's a good number. We're seeing improvements already just based on historical data. So we're going to go ahead and pick Jamar Chase in round 1. And for those of you who don't know, Underdog is a 3 wide receiver format. It is also best ball, which best ball essentially just means that you are going to, best ball essentially is that every week when players play, the best score on each individual position gets logged. So you don't have to make start-sit decisions. Like that's not a thing in best ball. So yeah, that's why I love best ball personally. I think it's great for people who are new to fantasy football too, because you don't have to get used to like setting a lineup and everything like that. I do think that's a really great way to get in to fantasy football if you do want to play, because you don't have to worry about setting your lineup every week, going on the waiver wire, making trades. None of that stuff happens in best ball. So we got Jamar Chase. We're at the 101, and let's play around with it just a little bit more. Let's say we want to take a running back 1 in round 2. So we take a running back 1 in round 2. We drop down again to 16.9. We were originally at 18% after round 1, so that's, again, not great historically. Let's say you want to take a tight end 1. Your number jumps really, really big. So obviously the ideal situation here would be if we could come in and get Brock Bowers as this second-round pick. It's unlikely to happen. We're 16 picks away. I can't imagine Brock Bowers is going to make it that far. Usually when I've been drafting so far this year, I've seen Brock Bowers kind of go like middle of round 2 is what I've seen for the most part this year. So it's unlikely. Maybe we'll take Trey McBride. That feels like a little bit of a stretch, to be honest with you. Wide receiver 2. In round 2. It's a good number again. It goes up 19%. It was at 18% after round 1. And our semifinals and finals advance rates are also really strong as well. So depending on if we can get Brock Bowers and what wide receivers are available, we might go wide receiver 2 or tight end 1 here in round 2. But I do want to just say this just based on, based on what we're looking at, right? The question that I've got is like, do you follow that to a T? Which is no, I don't. Like, it's a good tool to use. It is a good tool to use, but that doesn't mean that you need to like follow it to a T. And every single decision that you make in your draft needs to depend on what the Underdog roster construction explore rate is on RotoViz. Like, it's a good tool. I don't think that you should be using it as a Bible. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not the way that you should play fantasy football. You need to go with your gut, go with guys that you think are going to be good this year. Obviously, I put out initial rankings for running backs and wide receivers this year, and we're obviously still in March. So things are going to change without question, but it's fantasy football, guys. I just love being here. So, Joe Blacko, what's going on? Cam Ward is this year's JD5. Book it. That'll be really interesting. Because Cam Ward is, by all accounts, it looks like he's going first overall. I can't imagine that he's not the first off the board, because, like, looking at what the Titans did, like, there's obviously been tons of talk about the Titans moving back, if you've been paying attention. And the Titans, I think it would be dumb at this point if they did move back. And the reason I say that is because, when you've got a situation that they do at quarterback where it's Will Levis and nothing else, basically, they let their backup quarterback walk, well, that indicates everything that they're going to get a quarterback. And they're not in the running for Rodgers as far as I know. Russell Wilson, probably not. And so that would point to Cam Ward. If Cam Ward goes to the Titans, he's got a stiff climb. Like, and that's not to say that Jaden Daniels had it easy in Washington. He definitely didn't, but it'll be interesting for sure. Cam Ward, I don't think is just as good of an athlete as Jaden Daniels was. Clearly, like, he's not the runner that he is. I think he's got a really strong arm. There's a lot of arm talent with Cam Ward, but yeah, I mean, it'll be really interesting to see. JD5 won me my championship. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, Jaden Daniels was clutch. Jaden Daniels was super clutch. Okay, if we get Brock Bowers here, that'd be huge. I'm going to jinx it. I just know it. If Brock Bowers isn't there, we'll probably end up going with T for the hopes of a super stack here. And we get Joe Burrow later. I will tell you guys this, like, this is another example of like me not using this. Okay, Brock Bowers is gone, so I'm not taking Trey McBride. It just doesn't feel right. At least at the number 2 spot. I'm a big fan of taking Josh Jacobs at his price right now. I think Josh Jacobs is in store for another good year. So I'm going to take T. Higgins and Josh Jacobs back to back because I just think that construction, Josh Jacobs' price right now on Underdog is awesome. I have him ranked as a top 5 back right now, and people on Underdog and who's drafting don't see it that way. So let's see just historically what our numbers look like after we go wide receiver 2 in round 2 and running back 1 in round 3. So we're still looking pretty good here. 18.6% playoff advancement rate, 1.38% chance to advance to the semifinals, and finals advance rate of 0.12. So those are good numbers right there all around. So we're still on a good pace here to potentially make the playoffs and make the finals if we do make the playoffs with this current build. But again, this is not gospel. This is just me showing you guys that this is a cool tool to use. Joe Blacko says it's an art, not a science. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with fantasy is like, you know, I said it at the end of the year. Obviously, a lot of you know that I won $19,000 total on Underdog. I won $15,000 on the Rottweiler tournament. I won $500 in the Pug 2, and I won $3,500 in playoff best ball, actually, ironically, to increase that total to $19,000. So I am going to come out with a video before the start of this next season about exactly the breakdown, like how much I personally spent getting into drafts just to give people an idea. And I think one of the biggest takeaways to have is like, look, a lot of like the way I drafted almost 100 teams on Underdog this past year. A lot of the way I drafted was not based on like, it was not based on following that to a T. Like if the roster construction rate says I should go tight end 1 in round 4, but I didn't like the tight ends in round 4, I wasn't going to do it. You know what I mean? So I'm not just going to do it blindly just because historically it's been good. Every year changes, man. So you just got to make sure that you're staying on top of the details. Nate Dog, what's going on, man? Good to see you in here today. Appreciate all of you being in here. Knew it was going to be a little bit of a slower one. It's still March, so that's why it's called a way too early mock draft for 2025. Joe Blacko, yeah, scrambling upside is definitely not there. Yeah, Cam Ward, he's just not the athlete. I mean, I said it, if you guys haven't been watching my Dynasty channel, you might want to go check that out. I'm posting on Dynasty for the majority of the next couple weeks probably, and then we'll start to kind of trickle back in here closer to the NFL draft. And I've been talking about Cam Ward and like, you know, all the quarterbacks in the class. Like, it's not a particularly strong quarterback class. And the top 2 guys, him and Shedeur Sanders, like neither of them are great athletes. We don't have a Jaden Daniels type of runner in this class. What you can hope for with both Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders is they're both athletic enough to extend plays, and Cam Ward's probably more athletic than Shedeur to the point where Cam Ward may be able to provide you like a rushing touchdown here or there. But both of those guys, their fantasy impact is going to be based on who they're throwing to and how well they do passing the ball. So there's not really upside rushing with either of those guys. But I get what you're saying as far as like draft price, right? Like draft price, his price is not bad right now. It's not bad at all. Okay, so we're 7 picks away. Obviously, Joe Burrow is the target here in one of our 2 picks. So let's see what kind of construction rate would be good. Quarterback 1 in round 4, your chances plummet. I don't think it really, again, it doesn't matter that much because we're picking back-to-back here, but just to show you guys. RB2 in round 4, your chances are really good. Tight end 1 in round 4. Not bad, especially when you get to the semifinals and the finals. But running back 2 is probably the move, or wide receiver 3 and then quarterback. Because that's what we're going to do. If Burrow is there, we're picking Burrow. So It looks good to go tight end and then quarterback back to back. Let's see about RB2. Well, I really like Rashee Rice right now on Underdog. I think his price is awesome. I've been talking about it. That would be hard to pass up. Maybe Amari and Hampton, Chuba Hubbard. I like them too. I'm going to go Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice, Joe Burrow. So that's our first 5 rounds. So right now, we've got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Josh Jacobs, Rashee Rice, and Joe Burrow. So we've got that T, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow super stack right there. And that's what I was originally hoping for after we picked T. Higgins for that super stack potential. So let's set it up to how it went. So we have 3 wide receivers through the first 5 rounds. And as of right now, historically speaking, our playoff advance rate is 17.6%. A little above where we first started when we were drafting, in our semifinals advance rate, and our finals advance rate is not great. Again, it's not gospel. But what you can also look at here is look at the majority of people who made the finals when they picked one tight end. So this is the number of tight ends that you picked. If you pick one tight end, your finals advance rate is almost 1%. That means you have to hit on the right one, obviously. But it'll be interesting to see what we could do there. So maybe we'll want to go for a tight end early here. See if we can hit that guy. Quarterbacks, you're going to be best bet is picking 2 quarterbacks to make the finals. Running backs, your best bet is to pick 6. And then wide receivers, your best bet is to pick 9. So essentially, the other important thing to note here is that in these drafts, pre-draft, pre-NFL draft, best ball drafts, they're not like Best Ball Mania drafts. They're not like those. Those are 18 rounds. These are 20 rounds. So we'll basically get another wide receiver, or another running back, or another 2 of one of the 2. Point per reception. Won't be able to get that Bengals stack much longer. Congrats. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you haven't heard, they're all staying. Jamar Chase, massive, like 40 million per year, I think is what he got. And then T. Higgins, I think, got what? Like close to 30 a year, I think. They're both on 4-year extensions. T's was like almost 120 mils, like 116, and then Jamar's was like 146. So yeah, they both got paid. It's good to have all those 3 guys in Cincinnati. Hopefully they could get the offensive line together, because all of that will not matter if they can't protect Joe Burrow. And I think they did. Burrow gets hit every time he throws the ball. So obviously there's tons of flack there. But like, I honestly, like personally for me, they did okay compared to past years and what they've been able to do for Joe Burrow. So take that how you want to, I guess. Because they definitely could do better. No question about it. And again, guys, if you're itching to draft, get in on Underdog today. There's a link in the chat below to get in on Underdog. You can use code FFN. They'll match your first deposit up to $1,000, 50% in bonus credits. So essentially, you get in this draft. It's a $10 draft. So you deposit $10, they'll match you at $5 right there. And you'll have the chance to win $250K, $250,000, $100K to second, $75K to third, $50,000 to fourth. I won $19,000 on Underdog last year. So join Underdog today. You're getting a chance to win some big money. What else you guys want to talk about? We're live, man. We're live. We can talk about anything. Who's got birthdays coming up? Who's got vacations coming up, dude? We just got back. My wife and I just got back from Colorado. I'd never been to Colorado. I'll tell you this. Never been to Colorado. I always wanted to go. Love the mountains. Dude, that first day when we were there, I was huffing and puffing. Bringing in our luggage, I was like, we stayed up in the mountains like 8,100 feet of elevation. And I was bringing my luggage up, and I was like, dude, it is brutal. And my wife was like, why are you so out of breath? I was like, well, I was carrying our luggage up. It's a lot. Yeah, it was tough. But Colorado, we went to Durango. It was beautiful. If you haven't been, I would recommend you going. Shout out to people who are from Colorado, from Durango. I love Durango. Definitely will be back at some point. Took a train ride up there. Dude, it was great. It was great. I'm personally more of a beach guy, but I do love the mountains as well. Bryson Miles, mine was March 3rd. Happy belated birthday to you, my friend. Thank you for being in here tonight. Okay, so I would like to pick a running back here. I'm really a big Caleb Johnson guy. I think he's going to fall just because of how he did in the 40 time. And I don't like the tight ends enough here to take a shot on one. I think I'm going to go ahead and pick Caleb Johnson. Now, I'll kind of explain that more here after I make this next pick. I should have drafted Najee. To be honest, I really like Najee's landing spot in the Chargers. Do I go two running backs here? I like these wide receivers too, man. I'm going to go Najee. First of all, I'm a big fan of Najee's landing spot in the Chargers. I think that, look, I said it in the rankings, the thing with Najee is that Najee is not obviously going to be, like, he's not all of a sudden going to find burst, right? That's not Najee's game. He's not blowing through a hole for 60-plus yards. He's not going to do that. He can catch the ball, which he has not been utilized as in Pittsburgh since his rookie year, basically. Because Pittsburgh's dumb offensively. So he goes to the Chargers, gets a much better offensive line. Hopefully that improves his efficiency, but I do think that's also because of a lack of speed and, just acceleration on his part. That's a big reason he doesn't have better yards per carry. But the Steelers' offensive line is not nearly as good as the Chargers. He's also an Iron Man. He doesn't miss games. The Chargers wanted that. So that's a big thing because he'll, in all likelihood, play all 17 games for you, if not 16, in fantasy football this year. And I don't think that they're going to just leave it at that. I do think they will draft somebody. But Najee, I think, has a lot of upside as a pass catcher as well. And in on pass catching downs. So Najee could have a nice role there with the Chargers. I honestly, if I remember Najee was still down here in this range, I probably would have picked him instead of Caleb Johnson because I've got Caleb Johnson in a couple, and I probably would have picked another wide receiver because I like the wide receivers in that range. But we ended up picking both running backs. Points per reception. 6'8 Becton, 6'7 Alt. Massive right side of the line. Yeah, that's right. I forgot that Mekhi Becton went to the Chargers. That's a huge signing. I mean, that's a huge thing. Because essentially what you're going to get is, so you've got Joe Alt on the right side. He's the right tackle over there. Well, then you're going to get Mekhi Becton also on that right side at guard. That's what he played for Philly last year. And he resurrected his career playing in that right guard spot. And that's just the case. Some guys aren't tackles. Like, some guys are better off as guards. So you've got Rashawn Slater on the left side. He's a great left tackle, one of the best in the league. You've got Joe Alt on the right, already a great stud. And then you've got Mekhi Becton. Like, this is going to be a wall for Najee to run through. Like, this is a great offensive line. I'm really excited to see Najee this year. I'm, as a Steelers fan, personally really happy Najee went to greener grass because it is greener grass over in Los Angeles for sure. He's got a good season ahead of him. I think if he's the lead back, I think he probably has his best fantasy season since his rookie season. Probably. Okay. I need more wide receiver. I'd also like to get a tight end. I don't love the tight ends in this range. That's my problem. And Njoku's just hurt too much. Andrews, I don't know what to think about him right now. He went off the board. That's crazy. TJ Hawkinson is hard to get on board with personally. Just because of the JJ McCarthy factor. I got flack for ranking Justin Jefferson as the number 5 wide receiver on my wide receiver rankings. And listen, I think JJ's great, obviously, but I don't know about JJ McCarthy. And I don't think the Vikings do either. I think there's a reason why Aaron Rodgers is potentially being floated. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to go to the Vikings, but I don't think they're sold on JJ. JJ McCarthy comes from a college system that was run first. That was what it was with Jim Harbaugh. That's not a secret. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to kind of see where that one ends up. But TJ went off the board anyways, so that's not really going to be a concern. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. What are you doing if you haven't done it already? Well, I do like the potential of Pacheco and ETN at their draft prices right now. I'm not going to do it, I don't think. I'm not taking Rashid Shaheed. I don't like him off the injury. I don't like Tyler Warren enough without knowing his draft spot. I don't like Travis Kelce at all. I'm going to go with Pittman, see if he can have a little bit of a bounce-back season. I think I'm going to punt on tight end again. Try to just hit a tight end pop later. Question is, Rashad or Marvin? I haven't gotten Rashad Bateman yet. I think I've gotten Marvin once, so I'm going to go with Rashad Bateman. Just to diversify my portfolio a little bit for you guys. What else we got going on in the chat? Points per reception. Is Pickens staying in Pittsburgh? I haven't heard a reason to indicate otherwise. It's so funny. Pickens is not happy. Clearly. If you've been listening to him after he had one of the funniest things to say. And of course, after he said this, he was branded as a diva. So essentially what he said after the Steelers lost that playoff game, in humiliating fashion, by the way, to the Baltimore Ravens, the reporter asked him something along the lines of have you seen enough offensive improvements with Russell Wilson to think that things are going to change? And he goes, nah. So he basically was yeah, this place sucks offensively. I mean, and he's not wrong. That's why I actually kind of defended him a little bit after that. And Pickens, I'm not here to defend him. I do think that he's definitely a complainer. But, people jumped down his throat after that comment. How could you disrespect Mike Tomlin like that? It's if you haven't heard my thoughts on Tomlin, the guy is so washed up. And it's time for a fresh start for both parties. I think Tomlin would benefit from being elsewhere, and I think the Steelers would definitely benefit from going a different direction, preferably offense first. But I haven't seen otherwise of where else Pickens could be going. I don't think that he will end up leaving. I think they'll probably play out the last year of his rookie contract this year. Joe Blacko, Milroe worth a dynasty dart throw? I don't know. As of right now, I don't think so. Like, there's athleticism there, clearly. But the guy he wasn't very good. Like, he just wasn't very good. And it kind of, like, I've heard the comparisons of, like, him being compared to Jalen Hurts. Because if you remember Hurts, when he came out of college, like, his college career was highlighted by him getting benched in the championship game for Tua when he was at Alabama. Then he has a resurgent year with Oklahoma. Well, I mean, Milroe didn't even get that. Like, he didn't get a resurgence year. So, I'm not personally big on Milroe. I have heard from NFL scouts that some teams really like him, like the guy, so they would pick him. So, I guess it depends. Like, if he ends up going, like, day 2, if he goes in, like, the 3rd round, then, yeah, I would say maybe worth a dynasty dart throw. But if he ends up going, like, 6th round, like, to the Washington Commanders, it's like, okay, like, that, it's not worth it. But if team fits right, and if he's got an angle in there, and he's, like, not a super late pick, then, yeah, I could see it. Bryson Miles, J.J. McCarthy is him. Take it. Take T-Hawk, yeah. I probably wouldn't have. I'm interested to hear why you think he's him. It'll be interesting to see how he plays out. That injury he got wasn't good. It wasn't good. And he came from a run-first offense. I'm not off of JJ. I think that the weapons are great in Minnesota, obviously. The coaching, I think, is great in Minnesota. But I do think that there's going to be shortcomings just because he didn't play in an offense that was pass first. Like, he didn't put the team on his back and create wins. That was a lot of run game and offensive line. Joe Blacko, JJ ain't exactly Sam Darnold. I'm curious to hear what y'all think about Sam Darnold, too. Sam Darnold going to the Seahawks, I think it's hit or miss, to be honest. I'm not set in stone on this one. I think he got tremendously helped the last 2 years, particularly by really good offensive coaches. Kyle Shanahan in 2023, and obviously Kevin O'Connell in 2024. I think that seriously helped. Now he goes to a defensive culture, and I don't know like how I feel about their offense. They're on their 3rd offensive coordinator in 2 years. So, yeah, I mean, I just don't super trust this one. Okay, let's see what we've got going on here. Brian Robinson, I don't love. I do really like DeAndre Swift at cost right now, which is crazy to think about. Dalton Kincaid is somewhat interesting at his cost. I will say that. Do I want him to be my tight end 1? That's a stretch. But I'm going DeAndre Swift for sure. Because I love his cost right now and his fit in the Chicago offense. And very much contemplating going Justin Fields here. I'm going to do it. I'm going to continue to punt on tight end against my better judgment. I really like Justin Fields in the Jets because he's got weapons, and I don't like Garrett Wilson for fantasy this year, but I do like Justin Fields being a starting quarterback because the thing with best ball is you have to find guys that can win you weeks. Justin Fields can do that. I don't think Justin Fields has top 5 potential this year, but I do think that he's the kind of guy that's going to get you 36, 40-point weeks and be able to win you a week. So that's why I'm going Justin Fields. So I'm done with quarterbacks. So we can go ahead and cross quarterback off. And to touch on DeAndre Swift really quick, I think DeAndre Swift's fit in Chicago with Ben Johnson is going to be great. Now, that's not to say that they're not going to draft anyone. I am 75% expecting them to draft a running back in the first 2 days. I do expect that. But I think that if Ben Johnson brings anything over from Detroit, he'll bring that 2 running back system and kind of make DeAndre Swift kind of a pseudo Alvin Kamara, Jahmyr Gibbs type. He's clearly not good enough to handle the carries. We've known that about Swift for years. But I think putting him in the right spot, if he wants to work with him, could be really good. So I really like DeAndre Swift at cost this year. It's actually the first time I've taken him. Joe Blacko, Jordan Mason, sleeper. Forgot what team has him. So the Vikings just traded for Jordan Mason, I think yesterday. Yesterday or the day before, the Vikings traded for Jordan Mason. And I think that's a really good move for the Vikings. And I do think that Jordan Mason has tons of sleeper value. Let me see what his price is right now. Jordan Mason, RB52. So I'll probably try to target him, draft him above ADP. Because I agree. I think Jordan Mason is a great fit. Like, they signed Aaron Jones, and they gave him like a 2 or 3 year extension, I think. It was weird, actually. But I don't think that really matters ultimately too much, because I think they're just going to continue to kind of try to get more of a committee going. I think they tried to do it with Ty Chandler, and it didn't work because he's just not good enough. They tried to do it with Cam Akers. He's not good enough. Jordan Mason is good enough. I actually kind of bet that Jordan Mason will have a big impact on the Vikings this year. Jordan Mason's a great pick. Great call out, honestly. I didn't even think about it. Joe Blacko, Marvin is starving. Joe Blacko says Pickens looks up to John Morant. Maybe so. Honestly, I don't know. Is that true? I don't follow basketball. I know who John Morant is. I don't follow basketball, though. Maybe it's true. I mean, he definitely, he doesn't act right in the media, that's for sure. Bryson Miles, hey, where do you think Caleb Johnson is going? So, yeah, I'll talk more about Caleb Johnson since I picked him. And I kind of regret this pick just because Najee was still available and I didn't recognize it. But I'm still fine with making the pick because I like Caleb Johnson. He's my number 3 running back in this class, even after the NFL Combine. And the funniest thing was, like, before the Combine, he was a lot of people's number 3 running back. Some people had Travion Henderson. I think that the majority of people did have Caleb at number 3. But then he ran like almost a 4.6. I think he ran like a 4.59 or a 4.58 in the 40 time, and people dropped him. Well, this one's two-pronged because I do think that will affect his draft price in a negative way. Like, I do think that he has a realistic chance of falling to the 4th round of the draft because of that. But I also think that he'll be a very early day 3 pick, like right at the top of round 4, if he does. And I think that he'll get a legit shot. Because the guy's production, you can't argue with. The guy was excellent in college. So I think that still, I don't know where he's going to go. I'm not going to predict team fit. There's this running back class is so rich that it's like, it's kind of like trying to pick a needle out of a haystack. Like trying to find which team prefers which running back. Obviously, Ashton Genty's number 1. Amarian Hampton is a clear number 2. And I think Caleb Johnson is my number 3 still. Like, his production was just too much. He's big. He's got the size. He has enough speed on the field. I don't care about his 40 time. And he's got the production profile both in the passing game and on the ground. So there's running backs galore right now. I don't want to pick Kyle Pitts. Kind of feel like I'm doing myself a little bit of a disservice if I don't pick a running back. I'm going to go ahead and grab Dontavian Wicks as another wide receiver for some more depth. Potentially another boom week from him. I think it's possible. And I think I'm going to bypass everybody and go ahead and grab Jordan Mason here. I'm comfortable with bypassing Tajay. Devin Neal, I like him a lot. That's another rookie I like a lot. I still like Trey Benson this year. Tootin is obviously getting a lot of attention because of his 40 time. Rico Dowdle, I don't think is that great. Rashad White is whatever. Dylan Sampson, I like him too. Jalen Wright, I like. There's a lot of good running backs in this range. I'm comfortable picking Jordan Mason here. Thank you for bringing that up because I really like Jordan Mason right now. So let's take a quick team inventory. Right now, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Josh Jacobs, Rashee Rice, first 4 rounds. Joe Burrow to complete the Cincinnati Bengals super stack. Caleb Johnson, Najee Harris, Michael Pittman Jr., Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Swift, Justin Fields, Dontavian Wicks, and Jordan Mason. Feeling pretty good. Let me know what y'all think about this team so far. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Joe Blacko, Tomlin is the new Jeff Fisher. That's a good comparison, actually. It's not too far off. It's really not. Mike Tomlin's best days with the Steelers, I will say, are behind him. Again, I really don't think it's like far-fetched to say that, like, I don't think Tomlin's a bad coach. I think if he goes somewhere else, he'll revitalize a franchise and make them good. Like, I think if he went to, like, a failing organization, he could easily bring it back to life. It's just, like, that his time has completely run out in Pittsburgh. My patience has been thin with Tomlin since 2016. So, there's a lot of Steelers fans that'll tell you different. They'll balk at you. They'll scoff and be like, why would you ever think about life without Tomlin? It's like, well, I don't know. He always says the standard is the standard. But the standard over the years has become, let's squeak into the playoffs just above 500, have a 9-8 or 10-7 season, and then get pounded in the first round of the playoffs. Pounded. So, yeah, I don't think that standard's very good. I'd like to change that standard. He feels like AR5 with leadership skills. Milrow. The craziest thing about Richardson coming out of college, I don't know if you guys remember this, but, you know, Richardson, when he came out of college, several teams loved the guy. They loved him. They were like, this guy has leadership skills. He's like a good guy. He's a good leader. That was a huge reason that the Colts, you know, took a shot on him. And obviously, I'm not debating, like, his massive issue that he had with taking himself out of a game, but, like, there was a ton of people in draft world that were like, this guy has great leadership skills. It's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, Milrow, I've heard very similar on. I mean, it's honestly very similar to Hurts. Because the one thing about Hurts that I always liked, and I did not like him coming out of college because I just didn't think he could play. But the one thing that I liked about Hurts was that he was a really humble guy. He was all about his work. He wasn't a vocal leader, but he was a lead by example type. And he was like that with Alabama and Oklahoma. So I did like that about him. It's a very similar thing to Jalen Milrow. But hitting on him like Jalen Hurts has, I just don't think it's likely. So again, it's going to depend on team fit. Depend on where he goes in the draft. Bryson says I'm a Michigan fan. Okay, it makes sense why you like JJ. No, he's a bust. Cup and JSN will be bust too because of it. Talking about Sam Darnold. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I don't really buy into JSN being a bust. I think JSN's personally a little bust proof. I do. I think he's good enough to be able to make it work. Just because of the fact that, like, with JSN, he has such great route running ability and he can catch passes by the line of scrimmage. So even if Darnold goes into the tubes mentally, like, they're going to be able to complete passes that are short with JSN and he'll be able to make plays. He may not have a ceiling this year that's great, but I don't think he'll bust. Like, I think he'll be at minimum, like, wide receiver 16, 17 range. Okay, we're back on the clock. I would pick Cam Ward if I was going to pick a quarterback, but we're done with quarterbacks. I really like Isaiah Bond. Is Cole Kmet gone? I was really going for Cole Kmet. I'm going to go Bond here, and then it is time. I got to rip the Band-Aid off with tight end. We're getting down to it. I'm going to go Hunter Henry. I think it makes sense to go with him with Drake May. Yeah. So we've got two quarterbacks, Joe Burrow, Justin Fields. We've got Josh Jacobs at running back, Caleb Johnson, Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, Jordan Mason, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Rasheed Rice, Michael Pittman Jr., Rashad Bateman, Dontavian Wicks, Isaiah Bond as wide receivers, and then Hunter Henry as tight end. So we're set at quarterback for sure. And then what we can do here is we can go back to RotoViz, what I was showing you guys earlier, and we can go through and see what numbers look the best as far as how many to draft. So 9 wide receivers is a good number to get. That gives us our best finals advancement rate with our current roster construction through 5 rounds. 1 tight end is what we're going to stick with. It's very uncomfortable sticking with Hunter Henry as the only guy, but we're going to do it. 6 running backs is a good finals advance rate. And then 2 quarterbacks is ideal. So running backs and wide receivers, basically, until we call it. So we're probably going to pick 1 more running back and then go wide receivers the rest of the way. And, of course, if you do want to get in on an underdog draft, again, this draft was $10. So essentially, you can go in the comments right there in the chat. There's a pinned comment. There's a link to Underdog, and you can use my code FFN to get a 50% deposit match up to $1,000 in bonus credit. So essentially, when you put in 10, if you want to get it on the big board, they'll match you at $5. So you have 15 in there total. And this draft, if you get first place, you get $250,000. 100K to second place, 75K to third, so on and so forth. So I won 19,000 on Underdog last year. It's the best place to draft, in my opinion. So go down in the comments, grab the link that's there, use code FFN to sign up for Underdog. We've got a goal this year, trying to hit 250 total signups on Underdog this year. And I'm going to be giving away a lot of hats to people who use that code. So if you do want a hat, you want to win a free hat, 50% chance you'll win a free hat too. I'll announce that promo moving forward. Bryson says the only reason he was good was because of the couch and Jefferson. Who's the couch? Who is the couch? I'm curious. I don't know. But obviously, Justin Jefferson can make anybody good. Joe Blacko says that game Donald won late in Seattle made him $35 million. IDGAF, what my son says. He's a quarterback. Yeah, I think that there's, a case to be made for that for sure. I also think there's a huge case to be made that he cost himself millions, tens of millions probably, when he lost those last 2 games. That Week 18 game against the Lions and that wild card game against the Rams, I think he lost so much money in those 2 games. Because it wasn't just that they lost. Like, he looked lost in those last 2 games. He looked like old Sam Darnold. I think he lost a lot of money because of those last 2 games. Okay, I really like Demario Douglas. I wouldn't say really liked him, but I do like Demario Douglas at cost. I did like Jordan Whittington until Devontae Adams, so I'm probably not going to go him. Troy Franklin, I do like taking right now. Justice Hill, Braylon Allen, or maybes. I'm going to go Douglas here for sure. And then I'm also going to go with Troy Franklin. Bryson says, take Loveland if you can. He's better than Brock Bowers. Yeah, I thought that taking Loveland. I'm probably going to do it at some point. I do like Colson Loveland. He's the better pass catching tight end between him and what's his name? Tyler something. I'm blanking. The other rookie tight end. I like him too, but I like Colson Loveland better. I'll probably pick him at some point. I don't think he's better than Brock Bowers, though. I think that is a stretch. JC, you think Baker Mayfield will have another good year? You know, Baker Mayfield is so hard to tell with him right now. I just don't know. Like, every year, I underestimate the guy. And the past several years, he's blown past my expectations. Like, I thought in 2024 he was going to take a step back because he lost Dave Canales, who's now the head coach for the Panthers. And turns out Luke Getsy was a great offensive coordinator for the Bucs last year. Well, then he loses him again. So now they're on their third offensive coordinator in 3 years. So it's like, it's hard. Because I really like Baker Mayfield these past several years, but like I guess just like what I think of is those first several years of his career. Like, he just wasn't very good. But he's got weapons. His offensive line is good enough. I'd say Baker's a good play. I don't love where Baker's being valued. He's being valued as a top 12 quarterback right now. If he was like the quarterback 13 or 14, I would like him more, but I think he's like a top 10 guy, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know. Fields is a good pickup. Yeah, I like Fields this year. Swift ain't that fast, and I take that personally. Yeah, I mean, Swift is definitely not the player that everybody thought he would be, especially if you're a dynasty player. Like, he was one of the biggest disappointments at running back in recent memory, I would say. Everybody loved him coming out of college, but he just did not live up to it. Aaron Jones' injury is inevitable. Sure feels like it. Especially at this point in his career, it does. Like, it 100% does feel inevitable at this point. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel to show your support, if you have not done so already. A leader for a year. Dude started 12 games. Yeah, I know. Yeah, Anthony Richardson, I'm not not debating whether or not he's a leader now, but it is crazy. Like, if you thought back to when he was being drafted, like, scouts were all over this guy as being a great, like, team guy. GM, scouts, coaches liked him. Like, they were like, this guy is a leader. He's a good guy. He's a guy that I think that our team will get behind. It's crazy to see how much things can change in just a couple of years. Points per reception, Brenton Strange. Yeah, I thought about picking Brenton Strange too. Brenton Strange, it was between him and Hunter Henry. I briefly thought about picking Brenton Strange, but I ended up not doing it. But there's clearly a path. Like, Brenton Strange is a good pick where you're getting him at. I probably will take him at some point doing another draft. Brenton Strange is a good pick, for sure. Thoughts on Jonnu this year? Seems to have hit his stride at the end of the season. Yeah, it's similar to a Baker Mayfield thing for me. I guess I just can't really get on board with him. Although I do like him. Like, I do really like the potential that he has. I think that he is like, if you remember all those years when he was in Atlanta and why am I blanking on his name? Arthur Smith was the head coach over there. Everyone got driven nuts because it was like, throw Kyle Pitts the ball. Like, why are you not using Kyle Pitts? Maybe he was freaking right. I mean, that's the crazy part, is like acknowledging that Arthur Smith may have been right. He's just a better player than Kyle Pitts. They really liked using him last year. I think he was really great weapon for them. I wouldn't say I'm gung-ho on the guy, but definitely is a guy that I would take, in several different drafts. Like, I plan on doing close to 100, probably over 100 drafts on Underdog this year, so I'll pick Johnny Smith some. I wouldn't say I'm gung-ho on the guy, though. Tolbert, I think, is a pretty solid pick here. I'll go Jalen Tolbert. And I'll probably try to get a running back. I'm going to go with Raheem Sanders. I like Raheem. I have a love-hate with Raheem Sanders. Tyler Warren. Yeah, Tyler Warren is that tight end's name. That's right. Forgot about Tyler Warren. I like Tyler Warren too. I just don't think that he's as good of a pass catcher as Colson Loveland is. I shouldn't say that, actually. I think he's a really good pass catcher. I think Colson Loveland is a better route runner. And I think he's more easily integrated into an offense to where, like, nowadays, like, if you get a good tight end, you can split the guy out wide. You can split him in the slot, right? I think Tyler Warren's more of that old school, like, Gronk type of tight end to where he doesn't have, like, a lot of lateral quickness. But I do think that, like, I actually kind of made this comment on my Dynasty channel. Tyler Warren is a guy that if you've watched his college film, the guy did a lot of wildcat and, like, goal line rushes and short yardage rushes where he would basically play quarterback sneak. If a team uses him like that in the NFL, they could use a tush push with that guy, and he could be really sneaky getting you fantasy points. Like, if he gets in on tush pushes and he gets, like, 6 touchdowns a year because of that, that's really sneaky points right there. So, yeah, I like Tyler Warren. I actually like the top 2 tight ends in this draft. I think they're really good. I still can't get there with you on Colson Loveland being better than Brock Bowers. Can't get there. Okay, so we're coming up on the last round. We've got 2 quarterbacks, 6 running backs, 10 wide receivers, and a tight end. I might take Kenneth Gainwell. I like his. I sneaky think Kenneth Gainwell could be a good sleeper with the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. I think they'll use him. Something tells me they're not going to draft a running back. I don't know why. I just feel like they won't. I think they're going to draft a bunch of defense. So I think Kenneth Gainwell will be a running back that gets work in Pittsburgh. Darius Slayton fascinatingly finds himself back to the Giants. After years of trying to get rid of the guy, they ended up just re-signing him. I sneaky like Devon Vele too. I think Devon Vele has upside. Matt Collins has upside, I think, in New England. Malachi Corley, I'm going to just touch on him. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. Malachi Corley got shoved to the back of the basement because Aaron Rodgers didn't like him. Now that Rodgers is gone and they're trying to move forward, it'll be interesting to see if there's a role there that Malachi Corley could have. I remember liking him out of the draft. I think he's got potential. Crazy how far Tank Dell fell. I might have to take him because of that. That's really low for Tank Dell. Is he not going to play? Oh, he went a second surgery. I didn't even hear about this. Dell is scheduled to undergo a second procedure Wednesday to repair multiple torn ligaments in his left knee. Initially underwent surgery January 15th. First of what was expected to be multiple procedures to address a dislocated kneecap as well as torn ACL, LCL, and MCL. Holy. I didn't realize that he was having multiple surgeries on this. Oh, man. Yeah, he may not even playing. He may not play at all. Yeah, I'm going to take Tank Dell. That's a bummer, man. I didn't realize that he had another surgery. Public service announcement there. Don't draft Tank Dell. His 2025 season looks bleak. His career is sort of bleak. He's really small, guys. The guy is really, really small. All right, we've got a couple names. I will end us off here by going with Kenneth Gainwell if he's still there. All right, gonna end it off, Kenneth Gainwell. So that'll do it, guys. That will do it for the day. Again, if you want to get in on Underdog Draft, there's good ones here. $3 buy-in, little board. Big board's $10 buy-in. That's what I just did. $250K to first place. Little board is $100K to first place. Bigger board's $100 buy-in, and the biggest board is $250 buy-in. So get in on a draft today. Use that link that's in the chat, also in the description. Use code FVEN. Sign up for Underdog. They'll match your first deposit 50% up to $1,000 in bonus credits. Like the video, subscribe to the channel on your way out, and I will see you guys